I never expected my family to turn their backs on me, but standing in my Uncle Robert's opulent dining room that fateful Sunday evening, I watched it happen in real time. The crystal chandelier cast harsh shadows across their faces as they sat in judgment. My recent divorce papers spread across the mahogany table like evidence at a trial. My name is Victoria Chen Wilson, and at 32, I had committed the ultimate sin in my family's eyes. I had filed for divorce from James Wilson IUI, the perfect husband they had practically handpicked for me. The fact that he had been embezzling from his own law firm and cheating with his paralegal apparently didn't matter to them. The only thing that mattered was that I had failed. You've brought shame to both our families, Uncle Robert declared, his voice dripping with contempt. He was my mother's older brother and the self-appointed patriarch of our family since my parents' death 10 years ago. A divorce? In our circle? Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation? I sat straight back in my chair, my hands folded neatly in my lap to hide their trembling. The weight of my family's disapproval pressed down on me like a physical force. Aunt Diana, Uncle Robert's wife, wouldn't even look at me, keeping her eyes fixed on her untouched plate of beef Wellington. James was stealing from his firm, I said quietly. He was going to drive us all down with him when he got caught. I had to protect myself. Protect yourself? My cousin Michael, Uncle Robert's oldest son, scoffed. You should have stood by your husband. That's what family does. The irony of his statement wasn't lost on me. Family sticks together, unless you're the one who needs support, apparently. The charges against James are just allegations. Uncle Robert waved his hand dismissively. His father assured me it's all a misunderstanding. Nothing that couldn't have been handled quietly within the family. But now, with this divorce, you've made it public. Made us all look foolish. I took a slow sip of water, trying to maintain my composure. They didn't know about the evidence I had gathered over the past year. The suspicious transfers, the hidden accounts, the late-night meetings. They didn't know that I had already turned everything over to the SEC. James wouldn't be walking away from this one, no matter how many strings his father tried to pull. I didn't make this decision lightly, I said. I spent months trying to fix things, trying to convince James to come clean. He refused. And now you've ruined everything. Uncle Robert suddenly slammed his fist on the table, making the fine china rattle. 10 years we spent building the relationship with the Wilsons. 10 years of carefully planned business dealings and social connections. All destroyed because you couldn't keep your marriage together. The truth was, my marriage to James had been arranged more like a merger than a relationship. Our families had similar social standing, similar aspirations. The Chens were old money, with roots in international shipping and real estate. The Wilsons were legal royalty, their firm handling cases for half the Fortune 500 companies in the city. My wedding had been less about love and more about consolidating power. I have my law degree, I reminded them. I can support myself. I don't need the Wilson connection. This earned a bitter laugh from my cousin Angela, Michael's wife. A law degree you've never used. Face it, Victoria, you were meant to be James's wife, not some working lawyer. That degree was just for show, like everything else about you. Her words stung, but she wasn't entirely wrong. I had graduated top of my class from Harvard Law, but James had made it clear early in our marriage that no wife of his would work. I had let my license lapse, playing the role of the perfect corporate wife instead. What they didn't know was that I had secretly renewed it 6 months ago. As soon as I discovered James' illegal activities. You're not just ruining your own life, Uncle Robert continued, his voice cold. You're affecting all of us. The Wilsons are backing out of our joint venture in Singapore. That's $50 million gone because of you. I hadn't known about the Singapore deal, but it didn't surprise me. The Wilsons were probably trying to liquidate assets before James's crimes came to light. My uncle was too blinded by his anger to see that I might have just saved him from being caught in the fallout. I'm sorry about your deal, I said, standing up slowly, but I'm not sorry about my decision. James made his choices. I made mine. Then you've made your choice about this family too, Uncle Robert declared. Don't come crawling back when you realize what you've thrown away. You're no longer welcome here. The words hit me like physical blows, but I refused to let them see me cry. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door, my heels clicking on the marble floor. As I reached for the handle, Uncle Robert's final words followed me. You've ruined the family name, Victoria. Don't forget that. I paused, my hand on the door. No, Uncle Robert. I've saved it. You just don't know it yet. The drive home to my temporary apartment was a blur. I had moved out of the mansion James and I shared 3 weeks ago, taking only my personal belongings and the documents I needed. The apartment was small but clean, and more importantly, it was mine. As I sat, the next 6 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. While the city's legal community was consumed by the scandal at Wilson and Associates, I was quietly rebuilding Thompson and Palmer from the inside out. The official announcement of my ownership was still 2 weeks away, but changes were already in motion. My office on the 45th floor offered a stunning view of the city skyline. It had been Margaret Palmer's office for 30 years, and now it was mine. The walls, once covered in traditional oil paintings, now showcased modern art. The heavy wooden desk had been replaced with sleek glass and steel. Every change was deliberate, a statement that this was no longer just another old guard law firm. The Jenkins file is ready for your review, Amanda, my new assistant, said as she placed a thick folder on my desk. And the hiring committee has narrowed down the associate candidates to 10. I nodded, already scanning the Jenkins documentation. It was a complex corporate merger, exactly the kind of high-stakes case that would have gone to Wilson and Associates in the past. Now, with James's firm hemorrhaging clients, cases like this were landing on my desk. Schedule interviews with the top 5 candidates, I told Amanda, and get me the latest updates on the Wilson investigation. She hesitated. There's something else. Your cousin Michael tried to schedule a meeting this morning. He didn't know you were the owner, of course. He just asked for an appointment with a managing partner. My hand stilled over the papers. Michael, Uncle Robert's golden child, wanting a meeting. Interesting. What did he want? He wouldn't say specifically, but he mentioned it was about Chen Global's legal representation. Of course. Chen Global was Uncle Robert's shipping company, and Wilson and Associates had handled their legal affairs for the past decade. With James's firm imploding, they would need new representation. Schedule him for next Thursday, I said after a moment's consideration. Don't mention my name. After Amanda left, I pulled up the latest news about Wilson and Associates. The headlines were brutal. Senior partner arrested in massive fraud scheme. Wilson and Associates faces client exodus. Legal dynasty in crisis. James had been arrested 2 weeks ago, led out of his office in handcuffs. His father, James Wilson Jr., had suffered a minor heart attack upon learning the extent of his son's crimes. The firm was bleeding clients and partners daily. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Have you seen the latest? Your ex-father-in-law just stepped down as managing partner. Firm's in chaos. I hadn't just seen it, I had orchestrated much of it. After turning over the evidence to the SEC, I had quietly reached out to several key partners at Wilson and Associates, offering them positions at my firm. 3 had already accepted, bringing their major clients with them. The irony wasn't lost on me. Uncle Robert had accused me of destroying family connections, but he had no idea that his precious Wilson alliance was doomed anyway. By filing for divorce when I did, I had actually protected our family from being dragged down with them. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. It was David Thompson, one of the firm's senior partners and Margaret Palmer's right hand before her retirement. Victoria, do you have a moment? He asked, closing the door behind him. We need to discuss the Chen Global situation. I gestured for him to sit. David had been skeptical when Margaret announced me as her successor, but he had come around quickly once he saw my vision for the firm. Michael Chen trying to schedule a meeting. I asked. He nodded. They're in trouble, Victoria. Word is that the Singapore deal's collapse was just the beginning. With the Wilsons pulling out of all joint ventures, Chen Global is facing some serious contractual issues. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. How serious? Serious enough that they're looking at a potential class action lawsuit from their investors. The Wilsons had structured most of their international deals. Now those deals are falling apart. This was worse than I had expected. Uncle Robert's pride and stubbornness had led him to tie his company too closely to the Wilsons. Now he was paying the price. What's your take on this? I asked David. He spread his hands. Professionally, it's a huge opportunity. Chen Global is exactly the kind of client we want. Personally, he gave me a knowing look. They're your family. It could get messy. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Family stopped being a consideration when they turned their backs on me. And when they find out you own the firm? A small smile played at my lips. Then they'll learn that the niece they disowned is their only hope of saving their company. The next week passed quickly. I reviewed the Chen Global documents David had gathered, and the picture wasn't pretty. Uncle Robert had entangled his company so deeply with Wilson and Associates that every deal, every contract, every international agreement was now suspect. Thursday arrived, and with it my cousin Michael. I watched on the security feed as he entered the lobby, looking every bit the entitled executive in his $1,000 suit. He had no idea he was about to walk into my office. Amanda showed him in exactly on schedule. I was sitting with my back to the door, looking out at the city. "Thank you for meeting with me," Michael began. "I understand you're the new managing partner off." He stopped abruptly as I turned around. The color drained from his face. "Victoria?" "Hello, Michael," I said calmly. "Please have a seat. We have a lot to discuss about Chen Global's legal troubles." He remained standing, his shock turning to anger. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" "Not at all. I'm Thompson and Palmer now. Have for the past 2 months, actually. But then you wouldn't know that, would you? Family's not speaking to me, remember." He sank into a chair, his arrogance replaced by disbelief. "Does Uncle Robert know?" "Not yet. But he will soon enough." I opened the file on my desk. "Now shall we discuss the class action lawsuit your investors are preparing? Or would you prefer to start with the SEC inquiry into your Singapore deal?" Michael's face went from pale to ashen. "How do you know about that?" "I know everything, Michael. Every deal you made with the Wilsons, every corner you cut, every regulatory line you danced across. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of our childhood that for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy. "We need help, Victoria. Real help. Wilson and Associates is imploding. Our investors are panicking, and now the SEC. And you came to Thompson and Palmer because we're the only firm in the city with the resources and expertise to handle a case this complex." I finished for him. He nodded slowly. "Will you help us?" I let the question hang in the air for a moment. "That depends. Are you here on your own, or did Uncle Robert send you?" "He doesn't know I'm here," Michael admitted. He's not thinking clearly about everything that's happened." "You mean he's still too proud to admit he was wrong about the Wilsons? Wrong about me?" Michael didn't deny it. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of family history and recent betrayals hanging between us. Finally, I spoke. "I'll take the case, Michael. But on one condition. Uncle Robert deals with me directly. No intermediaries, no proxies. If he wants to save his company, he has to come to me himself. He'll never agree to that." I smiled, gathering up the files. "Then I guess we'll see just how much his pride is worth, won't we?" As Michael left my office, looking shell-shocked, I felt no satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge. It was about business. And maybe, just maybe, about teaching my family the lesson they had failed to learn. That sometimes, the person you underestimate the most is the one you should have feared all along. The news broke on a Monday morning. Thompson and Palmer under new leadership. Victoria Chen Wilson takes helm of legal powerhouse. The announcement hit every major business publication in the city, complete with my professional headshot and a detailed account of my legal background. I was in a meeting with our corporate team when Amanda rushed in. "Your uncle is in the lobby," she said quietly. "He's demanding to see you. Security is trying to hold him back, but he's making quite a scene." I glanced at my watch. 9:30 in the morning. He'd made it exactly 45 minutes after the news broke before storming over. Faster than I'd expected. "Tell security to let him up," I said, standing. "And cancel my next appointment. This might take a while." The corporate team exchanged glances as they filed out. They'd all heard rumors about my family situation, but none of them had witnessed it firsthand, until now. Uncle Robert burst through my office door moments later, his face red with fury. He was still an imposing figure at 62. Tall, broad-shouldered, and used to commanding every room he entered. But today there was something different in his bearing, a hint of desperation beneath the anger. "How dare you?" he thundered. "How dare you take over Palmer's firm without telling us?" I remained seated, projecting calm. "Good morning, Uncle Robert. I see you've read the announcement. Don't play games with me, Victoria. What is this? Some kind of revenge plot? Business, I replied simply. Nothing more. Thompson and Palmer was for sale. I had the resources to buy it, and I did. Just like you taught me, seize opportunities when they present themselves. He paced in front of my desk, agitation clear in every movement. And sending Michael back with that ultimatum. Forcing me to deal with you directly? Is that business too? Michael told you about our conversation, did he? I picked up a pen, portaling it between my fingers. Then you know my terms. If you want this firm to help Chen Global, you deal with me. No intermediaries. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He spat. Watching our company struggle while you sit in your fancy office, playing at being a lawyer. That stung, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I opened the file on my desk, the one containing all the details of Chen Global's precarious situation. Your company has lost 30% of its value since the Wilson scandal broke, I said, reading from the report. Your Singapore deal didn't just collapse. It exposed serious irregularities in your international operations. The SEC is asking questions. Your investors are preparing a class action lawsuit, and now, I looked up at him. Now you have no legal representation because you tied yourself too closely to a corrupt firm. The color drained from his face. How do you know all this? Because I'm good at my job, Uncle Robert. The job you and everyone else said I was too weak to do. The job that was just for show. I stood walking around my desk to face him directly. I'm not playing at being a lawyer. I am a lawyer, and right now, I'm your only hope of saving Chen Global. He sank into one of my visitor chairs, suddenly looking every bit his age. What do you want? Want? I want you to admit you were wrong. About me, about James, about everything. I want you to acknowledge that I saved this family from disaster by getting out when I did. And if I do, you'll help us? I shook my head. No, Uncle Robert. I'll help you either way because that's what a real professional does. But my help comes at market rates, and I won't be gentle about what needs to be done to fix this mess. For a long moment he was silent. I could almost see the wheels turning in his head, pride warring with pragmatism. Finally, he spoke. Your mother would be proud of you. The words hit me like a physical blow. He hadn't mentioned my mother in years, not since the accident that took both my parents. I turned away, blinking back sudden tears. Don't, I said quietly. Don't use her memory to manipulate me. I'm not, he replied, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years. I mean it. She always said you were stronger than any of us knew. I should have listened. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. If we do this, things will change. Chen Global needs a complete overhaul. No more cutting corners, no more handshake deals, no more old boys network. Everything by the book. And the lawsuits. We'll handle them, but it won't be cheap, and it won't be easy. I returned to my desk, pulling out a contract. These are our terms. Standard retainer agreement, but with some specific clauses about transparency and compliance. He took the contract, scanning it quickly. These fees are non-negotiable. I sat back down. You're not just paying for legal services, Uncle Robert. You're paying for salvation. Another long silence followed as he read through the document. Finally, he picked up the pen I left next to it and signed. For what it's worth, he said as he stood to leave, I am sorry. About everything. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As he reached the door, he paused. Will you come to Sunday dinner? Your Aunt Diana, she misses you. Let's focus on saving the company first, I replied. Family dinners can wait. After he left, I sat in my quiet office, looking at his signature on the contract. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Just saw your uncle leaving the building. You okay? I'm fine, I texted back. But the real work is just beginning. I picked up my desk phone. Amanda, get me the SEC files on Chen Global. All of them, and schedule a meeting with the corporate team for this afternoon. We have a company to save. The game had changed. I was no longer the disgraced divorcee, the family failure. I was Victoria Chen, managing partner of Thompson and Palmer, and I had work to do. 3 months after Uncle Robert signed the retainer agreement, I stood in front of Chen Global's board of directors, presenting our final restructuring plan. The room was tense, filled with nervous executives and anxious shareholders. Uncle Robert sat at the head of the table, looking years older but somehow more settled than I'd seen him in months. The SEC has accepted our voluntary disclosure, I explained, clicking to the next slide. With the implementation of our new compliance program and a settlement we negotiated, Cheng Global can avoid criminal charges and maintain its trading status. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the room. We'd spent weeks negotiating with the SEC, laying bare every questionable deal, every irregular transaction. It had been painful but necessary. The cost, one of the board members asked. $50 million in fines and penalties, I replied, plus another $20 million to settle the class action lawsuit. But considering the alternative, bankruptcy and potential criminal charges, it's a win. Uncle Robert nodded slowly. And the restructuring? I clicked to the final slide. Complete separation from any Wilson-connected entities. New compliance officers in every division. Transparent reporting structures. And, I paused, meeting his eyes. A new board of directors. This was the part he fought hardest against but had finally accepted. Too many of the old board members were compromised by their connections to the Wilsons. They had to go. After the meeting, Uncle Robert asked me to stay behind. We stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city skyline. The same view I had from my office, just from a different angle. You saved us, he said quietly. When everyone else was running for the hills, you stepped in and saved this company. I did my job, I replied. That's all. He turned to face me. No, it's not all. You could have let us fail. After how we treated you, no one would have blamed you. I thought about those painful months after my divorce, the family dinners I wasn't invited to, the holidays spent alone. I didn't do it for revenge, Uncle Robert, and I didn't do it for forgiveness either. Then why? Because it was the right thing to do. Because this company employs thousands of people who didn't deserve to lose their jobs over the Wilsons' crimes. And because I hesitated. Because Mom would have wanted me to. He reached out and squeezed my shoulder, the first physical contact we had in months. Sunday dinner is still at 6, he said. If you're interested. This time, I didn't deflect. I'll think about it. Later that evening, as I packed up my office, Kate stopped by. Heard the Cheng Global presentation went well, she said, perching on the edge of my desk. How does it feel to be the family hero? I laughed. Hardly a hero. Just a lawyer doing her job. A lawyer who now runs the city's top firm, she pointed out. Wilson and Associates is officially finished, by the way. They're dissolving the partnership next week. I nodded, having already heard the news. James's father had retired to Florida. The remaining partners had scattered to other firms, and James himself was facing 10 years in federal prison. You know what's funny? I said, picking up a framed photo from my desk, me on my law school graduation day, with my parents beaming proudly beside me. They all thought I was just playing at being a lawyer. Even James used to pat me on the head when I talked about practicing law, like it was some cute hobby. And now look at you, Kate grinned. Running the biggest firm in the city, saving family empires, striking fear into the hearts of corrupt executives everywhere. I rolled my eyes at her dramatization, but she wasn't entirely wrong. In the past 3 months, Thompson and Palmer had absorbed most of Wilson and Associates' former clients, doubled our corporate division, and become the go-to firm for complex financial cases. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Diana. Roasting a chicken on Sunday. Your favorite recipe. Please come. I showed the message to Kate, who raised an eyebrow. You going? Looking out at the darkening sky, I thought about family, about forgiveness, about the long road that had led me here. Yeah, I said finally, I think I am. Because sometimes success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about being strong enough to let them be right about you again. But first, I added, picking up a thick file from my desk, I have a merger to review. Kate laughed and headed for the door. That's the Victoria I know. Always putting work first. Not always, I called after her. Just until 7. Then I'm leaving early. She turned back, surprise, hot date. I smiled, thinking of the quiet evening ahead. No, just dinner with myself. In my own apartment, paid for with my own money, earned by my own work. Because that more than anything was what victory felt like.